Guys, Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of our Gags Goals Updates. This is our Road to 198 series. If this is your first time stopping by, I'm Coach Gaglione. I'm the owner of Gaglione Strength, and I've been involved with powerlifting and strength coaching for over 13 years. So thank you guys for stopping by. This is chronicling my weight loss journey. I've been as heavy as 340 pounds. Most mornings I've been sitting like just shy or just under 215 body weight, and I'm looking to compete in my first multiply meet, my first equipped meet in the 198 class. Come November 10th. So getting really close, only a couple of weeks out. And as of today, all my heavy training is done. If you watched our episode from last week, I did my heavy deads in that particular week. Wasn't my best workout, but as I mentioned before, I kind of wasted a lot of energy. I was trying on some different suits. The suits ended up being too tight. I was trying some different combinations because as I've lost weight, the suit combination I was kind of using has gotten a little bit loose. I ended up having to just go back to what I was kind of training in previously. So just to kind of recap quickly again, because I want to kind of recap all the heavy lifts, going into the peaking, finishing out the peaking phase. So just to kind of recap again, I did like my last warm-up deadlift, which was 525, hit my planned opener of 575, which moved kind of slow, but my positioning was good. I hit 615 with a reverse mini band, which is my projected second attempt. And I missed 650, unfortunately. But again, I was just kind of really shot at that point. I'm not too worried. I did hit, I've done that weight before in training. The only kind of difference is I did put the hundreds on this day, which is just something I like to kind of practice because RPS will use 100-pound plates. Just kind of simulates the competition a little bit. Besides that, things felt good. Like I said, I was just really kind of exhausted just trying to get in and out of some different equipment that just didn't kind of fit right. So did some pause deadlifts, and then on to squat workout. On this particular day, and Thursday as well, but since these are my last heavy sessions, I kind of carved up quite a bit. So I made sure I had a lot of fluid in me, a lot of, trying to kind of simulate how I'd kind of feel after kind of recomping and like rehydrating and having a lot of food and water prior to the meet. So I kind of been doing that before my last heavy sessions to kind of simulate kind of what that's going to feel like. Trying to, even attempting to be a little bit bloated intentionally, so the suit fits a little bit tighter and kind of feel, have that extra water weight kind of behind you. So again, I mentioned before, the suits, everything was kind of fitting a little bit looser, so I actually ended up putting it like another like looser brief on underneath, just to kind of make the suit fit a little bit better. But otherwise, I'm still wearing the canvas suit for the squats, and that felt pretty good. So I did with the briefs on. I did 520. And then I did my second to last warm-up with no knee wraps. I did that with 610. And then I guess at the RPS meet, it'll be, 605, so close enough. So I try to kind of keep the weights pretty similar. The RPS bar is 65 pounds, our bar is 60. So with the collars, it ends up being 70. So it's pretty close to simulating what the warm-ups are going to be like at the day of the meet. I did my last warm-up with 700. That felt pretty comfortable. We had our elbow study once again through NYIT, and one of my former interns, Chris Kelly, wrapped me on this day, which was very helpful, so I appreciate him taking the time to do that as well. Then I did my opener with 750, which is a little bit, I'll actually end up opening with 745, but just 7 plates and a quarter with the steel collars ends up being 750, so close enough. So that moved pretty good. I felt like, it was definitely a little bit harder to get down with the extra layer of briefs. But I felt like I was hitting a pretty good standard all day, and I felt like positioning was really good. I definitely was feeling it. I think I might have mentioned, I don't remember if I mentioned before, I kind of strained my right hip flexor a little bit last week. I felt it kind of strained or popped a little bit, just on when I was doing 3 plates on the deadlift. It's feeling better today, but it wasn't like feeling 100% on this day, so I was a little bit worried, but with all the adrenaline and all the equipment on and everything else, I didn't really feel it as I got up in weight, which was good, but it definitely was something I was feeling when I was doing my warm-ups and the belt squats later on. So I'm just going to be cautious to make sure that's kind of healed up going into the meet, but luckily, knock on wood, everything else went well. I did 800, which should be my planned projected second attempt with a reverse mini band, and then I did 840, which is a projected third attempt with the reverse monster mini band. So that felt good. I actually missed this weight the last time I was in my suit, so I was happy to kind of avenge that loss, so to speak. And then I did an 880 hold, which was very heavy with a loose knee wrap on. So all in all, it was a good day. Everything kind of felt like it was moving slow, but I felt like my positioning was really good. And I checked off all my boxes. I accomplished what I wanted to for the day, so that was good. The heavy hold is a really good way just to kind of overload your nervous system. Typically, we recommend somewhere between 110 and 120% of your max. So let's say like my heaviest single straight weight this cycle was 800. So an additional 10% would be another 80 pounds. So 880 was a good kind of place to start. I could do more obviously, but just kind of overkill at that point to do more than 900. But it was just something a little bit heavier than I'm going to do it for my third attempt, just to kind of feel the weight and unrack it. If you're a walkdown lifter, you could also use a heavy walkout as well. So if you're a 400-pound squatter, you could do somewhere between like 440 and 480 for like a heavy walkout, for example. Or you could do multiple sets. But those heavy holds are really good to kind of just practice the pick if you're a monolith lifter, or practice the walkout. And obviously if you could walk out heavier than your third attempt, it's going to give you more confidence going into the meet that your opener is not going to be like so heavy. So those heavy holds are going to be really important for squats. After that, I did some bell squatting. I used between 455 and 545. I did the majority of my work, I think, in like the 495 range. I adjusted my stances a little bit, like I said, because my hip flexor was bothering me, so I did some close, some a little bit wider. I just tried to find a depth and a spot that was comfortable for my hip, and then I kind of shut it down. So that was the squat workout. That was pretty good. I was really happy with that. Like I said, my main goal for squats is to squat 800. One of my bucket list goals is to squat 800 in 6 weight classes. So far, I've squatted 700 or more in 5 different weight classes. I've only done 770 at 242. If you're a long-time fan, you may remember I did squat 800 at an impromptu meet in Connecticut, but I only got one white light, so it did not count. It's not an official squat, so I need to still do that at 242. But obviously, doing it at 242 will be much easier than doing it at 198. So I'm just going to have to wait to check that box off. But for now, the goal is to squat 800 at 242, and that'll end up at 198 next, and that'll end up being my 5th weight class that I've squatted 800 or more. So that'll be a cool accomplishment. So that's definitely like one of my main goals for this meet. Moving into bench, and especially since like if you've been following along, you've known I've been kind of dealing with some shoulder issues, especially as I've been in a calorie deficit and trying to push strength and weight loss, which again I don't really advocate, but it's just something I am choosing to do. Number one goal is to get leaner right now, and the strength is just kind of something I again enjoy. It's not my main goal; it's definitely a secondary goal, but it's just kind of worth mentioning. So for bench, I warmed up very slowly. Overall, I felt pretty good on this day. I definitely was feeling a little bit sore. I wasn't 100% recovered, definitely from the squat workout, and I did some heavy bench work last week as well. I've been in my shirt almost every single week, just trying to play a little bit catch up. So now I'm going to probably not get in the shirt until the meet, and I'll just maybe do some slingshot work and just work my technique for the meantime. But my explosiveness and my overall, I think, form and my setup has been much better. I've had to, because I'm not really able to grind those weights too well with the shoulder injury. So I have some massage appointments lined up. I'm working with Dr. Elbury for some physical therapy. So things are definitely headed in the right direction. But I'm still a little bit behind the 8 ball. So luckily, this was one of my best bench workouts I've had in a while. So I'm happy about that. So I warmed up with the bench freak band with 225, 255, and 285. Everything felt pretty comfortable there. I did 315 in the loose Phenom shirt, and then I wore my competition shirt, and I did 365 to a half board, 385 to a half board. Everything was kind of actually coming down very easily, so I just elected to jack the shirt up a little bit, pulled the shirt down, brought the collar a little bit lower, and I felt like that was more effective. And actually, 400, even though it was a 1 board, so it's something to consider, but so 400 to a 1 board actually moved the best. It was really explosive off the chest, so I think I just need to maybe jack the shirt up a little bit earlier next time, or maybe for my second attempt. But so I plan on opening somewhere between 365 and 375. We'll see how warm-ups go. I'll probably maybe warm up a little bit heavier in the warm-up room just to kind of make sure that everything's fitting right as well. But yeah, that's definitely basically, I just want to open something in the high 300s and then kind of get on the board, so to speak. I then elected to do a 455 hold for about 10 seconds, which again is a little bit more, let's say theoretically my max is around 400, it's about a 10% overload. This is really effective for both raw and shirted lifters, but especially for the raw lifters. If you can kind of unrack and hold more than you're going to actually bench, it's going to make sure everything feels much better. It's going to stimulate your nervous system. It's going to be a great way to kind of help during the peaking process. If you look at Jen Thompson's a good person to look up for this. She's, in my opinion, probably the best bencher of all time, regardless of male or female or weight class. So she implements these heavy holds, I believe, every other week. So you can check out her like YouTube and some of her, I think her website. I think it's like 132 pounds of power or something like that. But if you look up Jen Thompson, like heavy holds, you know, she'll even work up to, it's a little excessive in my opinion, but obviously it works for her. You know, she benches around 315 at her best, and she's worked up to the point where she's doing heavy holds with like 495. So definitely she finds that there is a lot of benefit in those, even exceeding 120%, but again, as a rule of thumb, for people starting out, between 110 and 120% of your max. So if you're a 300-pound bencher, somewhere between 330 and 360, 110, 120% would be a good place to start for like a 5 to 10 second hold. After that, I was helping the rest of the team out, and I did I think I did about 5 sets of 3 with 225 and 40 pounds of chain, just to work my technique a little bit. Nothing crazy there. I used the bench freak band. Then I continued to do some seal rolls. I kept these a little bit lighter. I had some pain in my like right forearm a little bit, so I just elected to stay lighter with those, and I'll kind of get that checked out by Dr. Jim when I see him today. But that was kind of feeling a little wonky, so I just kept those lighter. And then with the bamboo bar, it's been helping my shoulder stability quite a bit. That kind of, we call it like a chaos training effect. When it comes to like the shoulder girdle and the rotator cuff muscles, the rotator cuff, it does like obviously do like internal external rotation and all these different muscle actions, but the true function of the rotator cuff is to kind of stabilize the shoulder joint. So when you do something like a bamboo bar press or any type of unstable pressing, like I've also been doing some bottoms up kettlebell work on my own, it's going to train the rotator cuff in like in its true function, which is just to work stability. So I'm just trying to get my rotator cuff stronger and just get my shoulder more stable. So adding the bamboo bar in, I feel like it's been helping. So I'll continue to keep the bamboo pressing, the chaos bench, so to speak. So if you don't have a bamboo bar, you can obviously just hang kettlebells or hang weights with bands on a regular bar. It won't quite feel the same, but I do feel it's a really effective tool. And I always found, just anecdotally with myself, the longer I kind of keep those in my program, my shoulders tend to feel healthier as a result. So it's something I just got to kind of put in the back of my head. It is a little bit cumbersome to set up, but I kind of just had Elvis and some of the other guys just hand me off over the last couple of weeks, and that's been working out really well. So that kind of wraps up the training. I'm going to do some lighter stuff I'm just going to work on. So now the training volume is going to be reduced. So like, let's say if I normally do like 3 to 5 sets of supplemental or accessory exercises, I might only do like 1, 2, or 3 sets of my supplemental and accessory movements, and the intensity is going to start to drop. I'm going to favor, I like to do, everyone's a little bit different. I don't really like to work up to like a last warm-up or anything like that. I'd rather just do more kind of speed work and just work on my technique. I'm not going to really be going heavy anymore up until the contest. I'm just going to really make sure my skill is on point. I'm going to be working on my skill. I'm going to be using like some bands and chains and things like that, so I can work on acceleration, work on form and force production. The accessories I'm just going to keep in. I'm not going to really push them too much, just kind of use them more for blood flow. I'm going to also utilize other exercises that we call RNT, reactive neuromuscular training. So I'm going to be utilizing things like a hip circle, things that will force my knees inward, so I need to reflexively force my knees out. Maybe some things that kind of pull me into shoulder flexion, so I learn to engage my lats, like a deadlift, things like that. So I'm going to do more exercises that incorporate RNT, and those are all exercises that kind of help drill certain technique errors. So it's going to help fix technical errors. So obviously, like a hip circle is a really common example. A common fault is knees coming in. I tend to have my left knee tends to collapse when I squat, so I'm going to use a lot of hip circle movements. I'm going to do a lot of pullover type movements, because obviously the elbow's flaring in a bench press or the upper back rounding in a deadlift. So any type of like shoulder extension type drills are going to be really effective, and something I'm going to keep in as well. So things are going to be kind of working my glutes, my core, and my upper back in a more isometric fashion are going to be exercises I'm going to start to implement. So I may be doing some more static rows or descenso rows, things like that. So they're low level drills. I'm not going to get really sore from them. but they have a lot of neural activity and they're going to help transfer over to the competition lifts and help correct some of those common faults that we see. So those are going to be some things I'm going to start to implement in a little bit more. So again, one of the goals we know very common, we want to drop fatigue, we want to stimulate the nervous system, but also a lot of people forget one of the goals of a peaking phase is to really get your skill on point, so really master the technique. And there are other ways you can master the technique, just like in sports, like you can get better at football with actually having to play football. There are drills you can do to kind of practice certain situations without having to get full pads on and go 100% and kind of accumulate a lot of fatigue. So you want to think about the same kind of lines no matter what your sport is. So there are a lot of drills for powerlifting that you could do without actually having to practice the competition lifts at 100% or 90% plus. I mentioned before in terms of the diet, I kind of carved up on these particular days. I'm going to start to drop my carbohydrate down, especially on my kind of accessory type training days. So I'm going to start to take some carbohydrate away since my training volume is going to be reduced, my activity level is going to be reduced, and I don't need as many calories. My goal is just to kind of stay around like 215-ish going into the meet, and then do a water cut, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit more how that's going to happen. I may or may not enlist someone's help depending on what I weigh. Usually we'll utilize a protocol. I like if you want a resource for weight cutting, Powerlifting to Win, Izzy Navarez, good resource. We like to use his water cut protocol with our people, so it works pretty well. Again, make sure that's a whole other episode in itself if you should be cutting weight or not. But just realize it's just a goal for me. Even though I'm not the best lifter, I am an advanced lifter. I'm 13 years experience in, so a little bit different. If you're like 1, 2, or 3 meets in, you probably shouldn't be cutting weight. If you're trying to qualify for a national meet or you're trying for an all-time world record, then we can talk about that. So we're going to reduce the training volume, reduce the training intensity, reduce the carbohydrates. And as far as the game plan for the meet, like I mentioned before, we're going to open, my planned openers for the day, 745 squat, 375 bench, and a 575 deadlift just to kind of get on the board. Those are all numbers I've been hitting pretty consistently in training. Obviously the bench, you can kind of argue about that, but that felt pretty comfortable today, and I think if I jack the shirt down, it'll be fine. For second attempts, I'm going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like an 800-pound squat, a 400-pound bench, and a 615 deadlift. I definitely want to squat at least 800, bench at least 400, and deadlift over 600. Those are like kind of my, if I don't get at least those things, I would probably be a little bit disappointed in the day. The good thing about those numbers is that if I can go at least 6 for 6, regardless if I hit any of my third attempts or not, that'll give me a PR Wilks. It'll also give me an elite total. So those would be two very positive things. It would put me over 1,800 pounds, which is not like an earth-shattering, like people do that raw, obviously, but that would be an accomplishment for me, hitting an elite total and hitting my PR Wilks, which would be awesome. So those are two positives. And if I could hit all my third attempts, it would give me a pro total. So I'd like to somewhere in the neighborhood of like an 840 squat, 420, 425 bench, and somewhere between like a 640 and a 650 deadlift, depending on what I need. 1900 would give me a pro total, and that would also give me my first pro total. I have not hit a pro total before. And the 840 squat in particular would also, according to Open Powerlifting, would be a top 50 all time for multiply, which would be pretty cool. So I've never been, the highest I think I've been ranked, so I think my 900-pound squat, I don't know if those results ever got in from the IPA Jingle Bash, but neither here nor there. The 900 squat I hit in competition would have been, I think, a top 10 squat at the time. I've been in like the top 20 nationally in a few different weight classes. Like I said, I've squatted 850 as a light 308. I've squatted 800 at 275. I've squatted 800 at 220. So I've been kind of in like the top 20 in the country for multiply a few different times, but never like a top 50 or top 20 all time. So that'd be pretty cool. So I think that 840 squat is something I definitely have my sights on. It's definitely like a lofty goal, but I think it's definitely possible. I've in the past, usually if I get hit with a monster mini band in training, it's very likely I could hit that at the meet. So as long as I feel good and the recomp goes well, that's definitely kind of like a more secondary goal. Some of my main goals for the meet would be squatting 800, plus 800 plus, 600 plus deadlift, 400 bench, and then like anything that's going to give me a PR Wilks and over like an 1800 total, I'd be very, very happy with that. And anything additional is a bonus. Like I said, 1900 pound total would be like a stars aligning day. That 840 squat, getting me in like the top 50 all time for multiply would be pretty cool. So, especially again, like I said, I kind of feel, I have very like average genetics, but I put in a ton of work, and I've kind of learned a lot from my mistakes, and I've learned a lot from many, many great lifters that have come before me over the years. So, I'm really excited. This goal of making the 198 class has been like a 3.5 year journey. And I just want to kind of show people like what's possible, and that you can still be healthy, you can be strong, you can compete at a decently high level. I don't think I'm like the best lifter by any means, but I think that again, once you get like 10 plus years in to a sport, I think you got to start to think about the long game a little bit more. You got to think about your health a little bit more. So I want to try to bring a little bit more of a balance to powerlifting and kind of show people what's possible with good nutrition, good training. And just also having your health in mind. So I think that's important because I do love this sport, and I would like people to be involved for longer. I think I see a lot of lifters come and go over the years. I've seen a lot of gyms fail over the years. Again, not that I'm that old, but again, I am well over a decade into, started competing in powerlifting in 2006. And obviously I've been lifting like way before that. I started kind of lifting more seriously in like 10th grade in high school. And this has been a very, very serious part of my life. Out of 13 plus years, I only didn't compete one of those years, and that was when I first opened up my business. That was in, I guess, 2011. So that was the only year I did not compete out of 13, 14 years of powerlifting training. So I think there's something to be said about that. And there's definitely a lot of wisdom that comes into that. So if you want to really excel in the sport, if you love it, you want to be in it for a while, you got to consider your health as well. Because the longer you're in the game, the more success you could potentially have. So I think that's important. So if you want to be good at something, I think you want to think 5, 10, 15 years down the line, not just a couple of months in or 5 months in. So that's kind of my 2 cents, and that's kind of like why I'm doing this. I wouldn't be having these crazy goals if there wasn't a point to it. I want to be a good leader. I want to be a good leader for the team. I want to be like an ambassador for the sport. I want to get more people involved in the sport because I think it's an amazing sport. So, I'm feeling the pressure, but I'm excited. Less than 1 month out. It's really cool. My first meet at 198. So thank you guys for following along the journey. If you want to support the program, check out the links below. Every little bit helps. Writing a review, 5-star review, buying a book, getting some coaching, all those things help make this possible. So if you like the program, check out the links below, and please subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.